Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I thought I would share some more of my sewing with you. I have made a couple more tops. One of them was a success, this one, and the other one was kind of a fail, not really a fail, it was just, I don't know, it didn't work out and I just need to redo it basically. So starting with this one, which was my success. So this is another version of the Stevie top by Tilly and the Buttons. I do make a lot of their patterns because I did buy a whole bunch when I first got back into sewing. So the Stevie can also be a dress, but because it's a beginner pattern it has like no darts and pleats and things, and so it's quite a boxy fit, and I think for me as a dress that just wouldn't really work. So I've made it a couple of times as a top. So this one I use this bee fabric. It's like a cotton poplin, I think. I can't quite remember. And I bought a metre of this fabric because I really liked it, and I just didn't think it through because nothing seems to be able, you can't make anything with a metre of fabric. I actually think that you probably can. It just depends on if it's got a directional pattern on it, which this one does, and also obviously what size you are and the kind of construction of the fabric and whether you can kind of manipulate the pieces a bit. But I didn't want to mess it up by putting the pieces on the, cutting the pieces out of the fabric and not following like the grain line or the directions of the pattern or whatever. And I'm just not confident and competent enough to be able to like mess around with the pattern and try and use up less fabric. What I am finding though is that I keep ordering fabric, looking at the back of the pattern, seeing how much fabric I need, then ordering that much fabric and then just having loads left over. So it's a little bit frustrating. I think I'm just not interpreting the instructions on the pattern well enough, but like I said, because I'm not that experienced a sewer, I don't really know how to work out how much fabric I need other than just going by what they say. So I just have drawers full of fabric that I've already made a top out of, and now I have like 3 meters left or something. Anyway, this one definitely I didn't have enough to make any of the patterns that I had. So I bought some plain blue cotton fabric. It was a cheaper fabric, and you can tell by the fact that it's pretty sheer, so it's probably good for lining really. I did the back, half of the back in the plain blue, and then the rest of the front and then the back yoke, so like the top of the back, in the bees. And then I did the little cuffs in blue just to try and bring it all together. I could have done this in bees, but I thought it actually worked better in the blue because the bees would have been cut in half kind of thing. You wouldn't have got the full pattern of the bees on such a thin strip of fabric. And then I did the pocket. I really like the fact that the pocket is plain blue. My boyfriend thinks it looks weird and should have like a big bee emblem on it, but I actually like the fact that it's blue. And again, it sort of ties it together with the cuffs and then also the back of the fabric, back of the top, and the fact that they're all plain blue as well. And like I said, the fabric is sheer, but because it's the bottom half of the back, it doesn't really matter, and because it's a darker colour, it's not too sheer, and all the front is still opaque, so I'm all covered up, don't worry. It's a really simple pattern to put together, and it's really easy fabric to sew, so I did find this fairly straightforward. Again, it's quite like a boxy style, and I did wonder about making it a size smaller, but I'm not sure that would still fit, because it isn't like it's too big of a size, it's just that it's a boxy style, and I would probably be more used to wearing something a bit more fitted. So I could have made a toile and tried out a different size, but I just couldn't be bothered, and I would have had to buy more fabric to make the toile and stuff, so I just made it the same size. I did have to take the neckline down again because I found the neckline of the original a little bit too high, so I took it down, and then I remembered that when I did that last time I had to then adjust the facing of the neckline, which goes all the way around the back, and by making the neckline lower you actually make the neckline longer. So I adjusted the facing, but it still was totally wrong. So I don't really know how I did it or how I should have done it, but clearly I'm not quite grasping how it all fits together. So again, I had to kind of fudge that part when I was sewing the facing on, and it's a little bit wonked, I think, at the back. The other version of the Stevie top I made, I actually made two, but the first one I just never wear. I think because it's got the higher neckline, it really bothers me. So this was the other one that I made. In this also, I think cotton poplin, it's the same kind of fabric, I think, although this one creases up quite badly. So does this plain blue fabric, actually, to be honest with you. And with this one that I made, I did it with the tie back. If you can see, it's got like a tie that you fasten, although it's so loose, I could just put it over my head without untying it. With the one that I'm wearing, I actually did the button and loop fastening, which was super easy as well, because you don't actually do a buttonhole, you just cut a hair elastic and then use half a hair elastic as like the loop, and then you just sew a button on. So it's actually really simple to do. Again, I don't ever need to unfasten it because it's so loose, I can just put it straight over my head, so that's fine, it's more decorative. One thing I realised when I was making this version is that I did the sleeves wrong on this version. So they kind of look pretty much the same from the outside, like the cuffs look kind of the same, but on the inside, this one, you can see all the seams and all the like messiness, whereas this one, you can't. I mean, you probably can't see it on camera anyway. Yeah, I realised that I must have just sewn them on like the wrong way round, because it kind of is supposed to fold over the edge of the seam so that you can't see it and it's not going to like come undone. I remember when I was putting that together, I got a bit confused as to why you were supposed to like press the seams in a particular way, and I couldn't work out why. And I think that's just because I had done it wrong, and it actually makes a lot more sense when I did it right this time around. So it is a little bit of a neater finish on the inside of the sleeves. So that's good, I've learnt, I've improved, all positives. And yeah, I do just really like this top, and I just think it's really cute and easy to wear. So that was my new Stevie top. And then, like I said, I made loads of Tilly and the Buttons clothes now. So I kind of wanted to branch out and do something a bit different. So I spent a lot of time looking at patterns and fabric online, a lot of time, hours and hours, without actually buying anything or doing anything. But I went on to Colette, the Colette website, and that's another independent pattern making company, and I have a couple of their patterns which I bought ages ago for trousers, and trousers I just really struggled to get the fit. I think most people do, but I decided to have a look at some of their other patterns, and I have to say that I never really loved their patterns. Again, I think they're a little bit like boxier fit, and also there's a lot of dresses, and I don't really wear dresses apart from like a simple like jersey dress that I might wear to work. But I don't really wear like nice summer dresses, and one of the main reasons is that in the UK the weather is so unpredictable. It's hard to wear like a nice cute summer dress. Anyway, because at the time when I was looking at this, it was roasting hot outside for a week, before a week of torrential rain, before a week of or whatever it's doing now, I decided that I wanted to make like a nice summery top to go with the 400 million other tops that I have. And then on the Colette website there was a top you could download for free, and it was called the Sorbetto top. I might not be pronouncing that right. I'm not exactly sure what that means, or if that's like a person's name or what. And it was a free download, so you had to sign up and put your email address in and stuff, and I don't know what I've signed up to, but this is the top that I ended up making. So I used this pink cotton fabric, which is the same as the blue cotton fabric I've used for this top, and it did say on the website that it would be a bit sheer, and I kind of wanted that because the example that they had on the Sorbetto like pattern was also a bit sheer, and I kind of liked that, but I think this is too see-through really. Because it's such a light colour, it makes it even more see-through than like this blue. If it had been in the blue colour, it probably wouldn't have been so bad. But I just think that the fabric looks a bit cheap, which to be fair is why I bought it, because it was cheap. You also finish off the neckline and the sleeves with bias binding, and I am stupid, and it told you to get what I can't even remember what it was now. It said to get, I think it's 3 yards of bias binding, and in my head I was like, right, 3 yards is a metre, so I bought a metre. 3 yards is not a metre, it's probably about 3 metres or something like that. I don't know what, I think it was 3 feet is a metre. I don't know. Just use the metric system, please. I'm saying that, but in the UK we use both, and it's just a big mess. I mean, at least in the US it's consistently imperial, and Europe is consistently metric. The UK is just like... Anyway, this top is... I think there's options to have sleeves, and there's options to make it longer as well with like a split hem. But the main feature is kind of this pleat down the middle, which I did wrong initially because I didn't quite understand the markings on the pattern piece, and I think they could have been slightly clearer because it does seem to be aimed at beginners, just judging by some of the other instructions, and the fact that it's a free download, I feel like that's kind of a beginner's download, and it's obviously a very simple construction. There's only 2 pattern pieces of this one. In some of the other variants there were a few more, but this one was just 2 pattern pieces, the front and the back, and then you have this pleat. And I did it wrong initially, so then I had to redo it, which is, I don't know if you can see, but there's loads of like creases down the pleat, and they're not supposed to be there. But and they don't seem to want to iron out. So I didn't have enough bias binding, I couldn't finish it off, the pleat got all creased and went all weird, and I'm not a huge fan of the fabric. So this is why it's kind of a fail, but it was kind of a toile, that's what I'm going to say, an unintentional toile, and it does fit. Again, it's a loose kind of boxy fit, that's fine. I went with a size 6, which, because it's a US pattern, a US size 6 should be a UK 10. I was going to do a US 8, but it just looks huge, so I went down to a 6, and it doesn't really take very much off to go down from an 8 to a 6, so it still looks quite big, but it actually just is like a boxy fit. And actually because it's a little bit longer than my hips, where it hits, I think if I went down another size, it might be a little bit too tight just there, whereas everywhere else is a little bit looser. So the fit's kind of fine, I'm fine with that, it's just the general construction that was the problem. So I have ordered some fabric to make some skirts, which hasn't arrived yet, and I'm hoping that I might have some of that fabric left over to be able to make this top again, but in a nicer fabric, and with the correct amount of bias binding. I'm not sure if bias binding is the nicest finish on a top always. I think it looks like a homemade clothes kind of, but at the same time I do kind of like it. There's just something very satisfying about it. I don't know what it is, and it's just so easy, I suppose. Having said that though, when I was attaching the bias binding, the instructions on the Sorbetto pattern really confused my brain, and it did take me a while to understand what they were talking about, and I'm still not sure that I did it right, but it does mean that you don't have to faff around with trying to hem little tiny hems and stuff, so swings around about. Anyway, those are the 2 new submarine tops that I've made recently, and like I said, hopefully I'll have some skirts in the pipeline soon when this new fabric arrives, so keep your eye out for some skirts. If you've liked the video, please give it a like, and if you'd like to see more, please subscribe.